the special meeting of the Lake Orion Village Council for Monday, January 26, 2026 to order. Roll call, please.
President Rutt,
Here.
Pro Tem Ford,
Here.
Councilmember Danielides,
Here.
Councilmember Lamb,
Here.
Councilmember Mosher,
Here.
Councilmember Papachek.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. The purpose of this special meeting is to hold a work session focused on the fiscal year 2026-2027 Village Council goal setting and objectives. I see no members of the public. Open call to public, close call to public. So item 4, other items, A, goal setting and objectives, fiscal year 26-27. Police Chief, Village Manager,
Thank you,
Edmondson.
Your Honor. The Village Council is scheduled to consider the establishment of goals and objectives for fiscal years 2026 through 2027. In advance of the goal-setting work session, council members were invited to submit proposed goals and objectives for consideration. A consolidated list of the submissions, along with any public comments that were received, are included in the attachment for council's review and discussion. And then there's below the previous council acts, a summary of council action prior.
Thank you. So we have before us, we have our 2025-2026 vision, mission, values, goals, and objectives, and then some proposed goals and objectives that have been consolidated, not with last year's. So if it's all right with the council, if we could run through last year's to see if there are still any that we want to strike off and just kind of, we've done it, it's not relevant before we then consider all the remaining ones together. Does this council want to spend much time on vision, mission, and core values, that first page? Some years we have, some years we have not.
I don't have any interest in spending time on that.
Okay, so let's move on then, goals and objectives. So goal 1, promote sound and prudent financial management. Again, we're just going to kind of run through the last fiscal year's goals. Objective 1.1 was to identify, classify, and determine use of all village-owned properties. So up for quick we don't have to belabor them, but yeah, comments.
I believe that's fully engaged already, and we could drop it off the list if it's in process, or do you want to keep it on the list if it's in process? Go, just a question
Yeah.
for everybody.
I might personally vote, consider keeping it on because it does say, consider possible license agreement options and things like that, so, yeah.
So I certainly support leaving it here, but one of the things that I would like to suggest is that we look at these goals more specifically from a measurable standpoint and from a time frame standpoint so that they're not vague, they're not ambiguous. So each of us has in front of us something, Stan, you're probably familiar with this. My wife got it from her teaching career. But it's called the SMART framework. And what it is the acronym SMART. Goals should be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So my suggestion would be that we look at a goal like this, and specifically this one, we should put some timing around. There should be an expectation that this is going to be complete sometime, and we just need to put a time on it, in my opinion, and we may not meet that time frame, but it's where we ought to be targeting.
So I'd say I very much support that. I think I'd be interested in first just quick going through and seeing which ones we do want to focus on, and then kind of consider them
That's fine.
together. So it sounds like we'll keep that one. How about objective 1.2, address parking needs of the downtown, including paid park meters on a street, parking structure, signage for employee parking areas, consider lumberyard parking deck and grants?
I basically, this is devolved down to a discussion as to whether we would have on-street parking charges. So I think the most of it could be eliminated. And I think indeed we should resolve this pay-to-park issue. As we've all noticed, if you go here during the day or most of the time, you can find a parking space easily. It's only during peak hours that we can't park, right? And then some of us walk. We have a large walking population. I'd like to keep it, pare it down, and put a put a finite, like you George's smart thing on it.
Yeah.
And get it resolved once and for all. And that would be my opinion.
And I agree with that. The only recommendation I might have is, I think the pay to park is part of a bigger issue, and that's the financial situation that I believe we're in as a village. And I think this may be a piece of a bigger elephant. And so it may remain as a single objective or single goal, or we may wrap this into the concept of generating more ideas that would generate revenue and/or cutting cost.
So we'll leave it for honing
Yes.
purposes,
I think so.
unless anybody has strong opinions otherwise. Objective 1.3, investigate cityhood.
I think we're done with it.
Yep, I think that can be stricken. Goal 2, promote proper management of capital assets and infrastructure. Objective 2.1, replacement of Children's Park pedestrian bridge to be replaced with bridge structure previously purchased.
Now, isn't that budgeted and engineered and planned already for this calendar year?
I might ask Wes for where the status, if you know, on the Children's Park bridge.
We've already purchased part of this, and we're working with our engineers to get this done this fiscal year. Yes,
We budgeted it for this year, though. It's in the budget, right? The money for everything.
correct.
So again, this one should have some timing around it.
Yeah, we can leave it so we know it's been completed. Goal 3, promote quality recreation services and environmental stewardship. Review, objective 3.1, review lake drawdown, lake lowering every 5 years, next in 2027, structure issues. Approval of Eagle DNR, public input on value of continuing infrastructure spillway issues, reevaluate engineering repair structures or abandon. There's some more hydrological studies, cold water bottom drawdown evaluation, further erosion of Paint Creek. Thoughts?
The drawdown, I'm in favor of the drawdown. The other elements of this, there's quite a few elements in this, and I don't care about any of them other than, are we going to repair the drawdown structure that runs under Oat Soda or not? So there's the drawdown structure, and other than that, there's no push from the community for any of this. But I know that there's an outstanding repair issue with that drawdown structure, and I don't know, Wes, did we budget anything for that, or is there a plan for that, or an evaluation, or did we do a study?
There's a plan in place. It was part of the dam review, and our engineers are going to take a more broader look at it to determine what exactly needs to take place. So nothing's been budgeted for it yet, but we have got some initial quotes to review it, the structure itself.
So I think this one should be pared down to what's relevant. I agree with
Yeah.
Michael. I don't see any reason to discuss the drawdown itself, whether we do that. But the specifics of things that need to be repaired, again, that we ought to pare down on those specifics and put timing around it.
Okay. Objective 3.2, Parks and Recreation, promote and support increased funding for parks and recreation programs.
I think we've been working on that already. I don't think that needs to be a goal and objective. I think it's part of our village. I think it's what we want to do. We've been trying to budget it. If you need to have it in the goals and objectives, I don't object, but I think it's already a priority, and it, not a goal or an objective, it's just part of our getting money for everything else, kind of. When we finally decide how we're going to spend the village's money, we need to, it should be in, I don't know, but I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah, Mr.
Yeah,
Ford?
I think it doesn't hurt to keep it there, just as a reminder that, this is an ongoing program that we have every year. And I don't want to eliminate it and then, go through a year and go, oh, wait a minute, we haven't addressed anything there or have it come up. So to leave it on, does it necessarily fit, the SMART framework, we can take a look at that too, but I think it should stay on there.
So I think it should be here also. However, to Stan's point, it is not specific, it's not measurable. We need to put some things down here, like, we've got the basketball court at Atwater. We've got upgrades, so to speak, on the docks that we want to do. We've got the shade sails. So we ought to be specific about, these are the things that we're going to do and put timing around them. And at the end of the year, we can come back and say, we either did it or we didn't.
Yeah. Sounds good. Goal 4, promote positive community image. Objective 4.1, providing services to the community by reviewing administrative office hours and inclement weather closing policy. We did that.
We've done that.
So, objective 4.2, ordinance enforcement, complete ordinance codification, finalize engineering standards, enhance enforcement efforts, and explore funding opportunities.
So this is a bunch of different topics, actually, that are unrelated, and they ought to be in separate objectives or completion tasks. The codification is a separate item. The finalizing the engineering standards, I have talked to the village engineer, and that got caught up in with the attorneys. They never finished the work. It's half done. So I'm suggesting that we split this into 3 items so that we can get a direct, like the ordinance, the codification should have been done years ago, so that's way overdue. The engineering standards need to be a separate item because they're ready to be finished, but no one ever bothers to notice that it's not done. I'm not blaming anybody. And then the enhanced enforcement efforts, I think the chief was going to work on that this year. There was a lot of talk, so I think they should be split into those 3 categories so that they can be smarted. That's the right expression.
All right, so we've kind of gone through, eliminated a couple things from last year's goals and objectives. We have a number of different things in each category, so maybe we'll go category by category. And council can choose to, if we have the consolidated list from council input, and then we have the remaining ones from last year, and suggest ones that are smarter and a little bit more concrete based on what's written. Would it be helpful if I read through, just for the public benefit, the consolidated list? That might be helpful.
Well, the other thing that we might want to do is, instead of you just reading it, for those of us that submitted something, maybe it would be better for,
Yeah,
like, for example, the ones that I submitted, I explain what they are and why I felt they were important,
Yeah.
as opposed to just reading them.
yeah,
I
that's
just throw
fine.
that out.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fine. Let's just take it category by category and try to work through a couple categories today. So promote sound and prudent financial management is the first one. Do we want to tackle so we left on there, identify, classify, and determine use of all village-owned properties. Do we want to shore that up somehow? We talked about making it a little bit more time-bound.
I think that should be in item 2. Capital
Okay.
assets and infrastructure. I don't think that's part of the
Yeah.
finances at all.
I'm fine. Anybody have any objection in moving that to management of capital assets and infrastructure? I hear none. So we'll consider it when we get to goal 2. The parking, how might this council want to talk about parking under the financial piece, pay to park?
So in my opinion, pay to park is a no-brainer. We've got budget problems. We're going to find out here. I have every confidence that when we get together and go through the budget, and then we sit down with the DDA and work the 2 budgets together, we're going to go through exactly what we did last year, and it's not going to be pretty. And in my opinion, we need to get our arms around that and either start coming up with ideas on generating additional revenue, or we need to get serious about finding areas where we can reduce cost and get our finances under control. And I'm not talking about the year-to-year balancing a budget. I'm talking about a $28 million CIP that we just keep trickling down to our residents. And I think we need to take our budget very seriously as far as revenues and expenditures to start with. So in my mind, we need to find the best pay to park and implement it. That's what I would do. And I know we got folks that say, I'll never vote for paying to park, but we need to put the emotional argument aside and start talking facts and numbers. It's my opinion.
Well, I
So where does this go then?
It would be under Goal 1,
Okay.
promote sound and prudent financial management. And
So it's really finding other sources, revenue sources. This is
Not
one.
necessarily, but you can have more than just that under financial management, but this is one thing, yes.
Yeah, we should, that's misleading, to promote sound and prudent financial management. Maybe we should just rename this category to something else. Because sound or prudent doesn't really, to me, doesn't mean I don't know. It's just, I support the pay to park. There's been a lot of politics involved in it. There's been advocates for it, and then there's been naysayers, but the council hasn't given Mr. McCleary a clear leadership on what to do with these. A lot of these items here, we haven't spelled out to administration what we want to do, and what I've noticed in the past years is that administration is not really willing to push policy that we haven't defined, meaning that he's not going to ride on these items unless we tell him to. So we've got the paid parking. It's on our goals and objectives. We need to clearly, simply define what we want him to accomplish. So it's,
Yeah.
So we've been talking about this whole parking thing since I've been on the council for 3 years. We've really not come to any conclusion about it. I believe Mr. Sanchez had looked into possibilities, how we could do that, how other communities do the pay to park. And I do think that would bring in extra money. I know people are not going to like it because they're just not going to, but I think it's something that we have to consider, we have to continue to consider for the parking. So if there's any way we can bring in any additional monies into the village for the parking, I think that is always a good thing. People aren't going to like it. I think the meters are not, I think it just depends on how we do that. But I know we looked into this before. And so I feel like we're just going round and round like we always do. And we don't come to any conclusion with that.
Yeah, Mr. Pepchick.
Yeah, you guys know I'm a little newer up here, so this is kind of the first time it's really come up, and at least that I've put some thought to it. It's one of those I'm a little torn on, right? I've lived here 4 years. I go out to dinner every Friday and Saturday night, and I've never had a problem finding a parking spot, parades, everything else. But I hear people complain about it, so I understand it's an issue for everybody else but me, I guess. I don't know, so I struggle with it personally, that it's this big issue, because not one, hundreds of times I've gone out, and I've never had a problem. But maybe I'm okay walking 2 blocks, or, you know, but it is what it is. I guess what I'd like to understand is, obviously, there's, you know, maybe there's like a committee or something, because I don't know what it costs to put paid parking in place. And I don't know what that payoff is. How many spots would be paid? Put a rate. Rochester has a lot of structures, right, and meters and all that. I'd be curious to see that payoff. Is this significant in terms of the revenue? Is it worthwhile? It might be. I just don't, I don't know. There's some upfront costs, I would imagine. Then there'd be some revenue ongoing. Then you've got to look at any negative impact. Does it reduce traffic downtown? Does it make people a little less likely to come downtown too? Maybe. I'm sure there's a lot of components. I just haven't seen data or estimates or any kind of business case for it, I guess.
So I think we could talk about this for the next hour about paid parking. So I think to try to move us through here.
Yeah.
So I have written down as a goal or objective, investigate pay to park, the impact found in similar sized communities, parking, you know, investigate the different paid parking providers, and then determine if we want to move forward with paid for parking by the end of the year or something,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, just paid for parking, yes. We
Yeah.
have most of the data, yes.
And if we choose to move forward with that through a committee or directing the village manager, we can do that, but at least then we have something concrete to do.
Sounds good.
Okay.
So moving over to the consolidated list from council members, so first one from Mr. Dandelides, establish a revised process for budget development for the coming fiscal year. That 1, establishes preset expenditure targets, 2, eliminates funding and operational redundancies, and 3, establishes new revenue sources or cost reductions to reduce residents' financial burden for capital improvement costs.
So I'll restate, I believe that we've got financial issues that need to be addressed. I sat through the budget development as a resident a couple of years, and then sat through last year's as a councilman. We do a great job of looking at what our revenues are going to be, and then putting together a budget that matches or that falls below that, you know, those revenues. I believe that there are redundancies. I believe that there are things that need to be fixed within that budget, and I'll name a couple. Okay, last year we said we were going to run the cemeteries at a $70,000 loss. Okay, I thought that was ridiculous, but that's the way we went into the budget. So that's very low-hanging fruit in my mind. There's $70,000 that we're spending that we don't need to. We're not running a charity. I believe we have redundancies between the DDA and the village that need to be identified and wrestled to the ground the way we would run a business or the way we would run our own personal finances. And I don't believe we're doing that. So those are the kind of things that I think we need to get our arms around. And in order to do that, I would suggest that we set, before we go through the budget development process, that we set either a target or a % reduction and have our administration go back and put together a budget that falls within those guidelines. And let's see where we land. And I think that would, in my mind, that's the first step in starting to get our arms around our day-to-day finances. So that's what I'm suggesting here. And whether we go into it with a 10% reduction, that would be one strategy. Another strategy might be to look at our spending this year and make that as a chalk line and say, we're not going to spend any more than that next year, because we know that through we're going to have increases, inflationary increases in our revenues based on the inflation of the property values. So we know our revenues are going to be higher based on that inflation, but we could put a chalk line of this year's spending and say we're not going to spend more than that. But I think that we ought to give administration a target and ask them to come back with a budget that meets that target, and let's see where we land, instead of what we have done in the past, and then we end up where we end up. And I know where we'll end up. So that's my suggestion.
Mr. Lamb?
I agree with George on defining and developing like that. I see that promoting sound, prudent financial decisions. So the newer council people may not have a fully cognizant understanding of how the government money flows. So in a village, Lake Orion, we have something called an enterprise fund, which manages the water and sewer money. This, according to current policy set by council, this is a separate entity. The next element in our village finances is the street program. The street programs are currently set up where they're done by special assessment and from donations from the state of Michigan or tax givebacks. So that's a second element. The third element is the budget, the general budget, which our management has sought to address separately all of these years. The budget maintains the general operations of the village and includes the people. Pretty much most of the budget is the staff that runs everything. So the problem is in our budget and funding and cutting of the budget, how are we going to proportion monies from the general budget, monies from road assessments and state funding, and monies from sewer and water bills? So to cross over, so I agree with the concept, but to cross over the funding between these elements of our economics, we need to, as a council, decide on a policy. Are we going to expend general village funds for water and sewer projects? Are we not? Things like of this nature. So these are policy things. So I fully support George's, and then there's some operational characteristics that are also village council elements. When we talk about consolidating, I've heard several times, consolidating DDA operations with village operations, okay? Currently, our DDA is pretty much a separate autonomous agency, and it's not legally possible for us to commingle the funds from their tax capture with our village funds. Now, so to accomplish a change, that's another policy that would involve restructuring of our village, okay, which would include legislation. So we would have to create legislation to do that. So in order to effect this organized budget review, where we're going to take monies from one pot to the other or take staff and personnel, we'll have to fully consider policy changes and legislative changes. I'm not sure how we will get that discussion going, and I would love to hear, I'm open to all ideas, maybe, George, you want another committee, or, okay, but so the technical issues are beyond management's ability to solve them without guidance from the village council. I've been listening for years to this stuff, right? So that's my input into that item. So,
I feel like it can be honed a little bit more, but I'm not sure how to do that at the moment. So I'm fine with leaving it as you've stated until we can maybe hone it just a little bit more. And I think there were like 50 paragraphs just added to it. Just teasing. So yeah, I'm fine leaving it right there. And if we can play with it, the next meeting too, we can. Next objective, investigate combining village and township into a single municipality. Mr. Dandelides.
So I see this as very similar to the discussion that we had on cityhood this year. I think that there are redundancies between what we as a village are doing and what the township's doing. When I look at the millage rates that we're all paying to the township, because regardless of whether you're a township resident or a village resident, we in the village are paying all of the same millage rates that the folks in the township are paying. So the village millages are over and above that. And quite honestly, I hate to say it, but oftentimes when I'm having discussions with my neighbors, I'm asked the question, what am I getting for my village millage? And it's a very difficult question to answer in my mind. So I think that we ought to look at the possibility of combining the village and the township from a legal standpoint, from a cost standpoint, and see if it's possible, and see what value that might bring to the whole enterprise. And maybe we end up, at the end of that investigation, maybe we end up where we ended up with the cityhood, and we say, that dog won't hunt. But maybe there is something there. And I think we have an obligation to investigate that, and through data and facts, it either makes sense or it doesn't make sense, and then move on. So I'm looking at it as a goal to investigate and, quantify.
Yeah. So I guess without getting like too deep into the weeds, council's thoughts on leaving it on as a goal for discussion.
So I may be a little confused. I thought we went through this already. I thought we spent time on this already. I thought we had a committee on this already. I thought we decided that it wasn't a possibility
That was for cityhood.
for cityhood. Okay. So, I don't know. I mean, I would say keep it, we can keep it on, we can look at it, but, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this if it turns out that we're just doing the same thing over again, and we have the fire department and all of that. So, I mean, this is worded a little bit differently. So, I'm not opposed to continue looking at that, to combine the village and the township. I just don't know what that will look like at this point.
Mr. Ford?
Well, I think it should stay on there also. At the very least, we get the facts whichever way we go. And maybe it'll quiet some of the public comments that we get, because we'll be able to say, well, it would work because of this, or it won't work because of this. So to keep it on, and let's find out, because we do get a lot of comments both ways. People can't figure out what they get for their village taxes. I can't figure out what I get for my township ones. So, I think it's worth looking at.
At the library.
Yeah, so that would be objective 1.3. So for Lindsay's benefit, the first one that we were talking about, the revised process for budget, would be objective 1.2. This would be 1.3, as I'm keeping notes and for everybody.
So-
Yeah, Mr. Lamb?
I'm not going to belabor that one either. I'd be happy to do another committee on that. I thought we all escaped the wrath of the citizens, and the committee work went well. I enjoyed doing it. I would volunteer. Yes, it's another one of those issues that is economic, but also a social issue. As Stan has pointed out many times to us. And so we should look at it carefully. And then, remember, we can look at it all we want, but that one takes a 2/3 vote of the village population and a petition. So, so I'd say we just form a committee, go through the numbers. It's pretty much a book work thing. And then, send out an opinion poll with our water bills.
Well, let's get the facts,
Yep.
understand the process.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the next one, investigate the imbalance of water usage purchased and sewer discharge estimated to be over 50% more sewer disposal than water purchased. Determine and execute steps to remediate. Mr. Dandelides.
Yeah, this is something that is relatively new to me from being on council last year, but it's come up multiple times, and this, to me, looks like low-hanging fruit also. And I think we have an obligation to investigate, quantify, and if there's reality there, then what can we do about it, and what do we do about it?
So
Mr. Lamb?
I brought this up on several occasions and talked about some of the things. One of the other problems with our village, God bless us, is the staffing available to do many of the things. For instance, over in the township, I'm sure they have, a dozen people available to assist in the everyday activities of the DPW. Okay? We have a DPW director and a staff of 0 for him that does all of the water rates, all of the studies, all of the investigations. So I think we need to clearly define with our village manager how we're going to, this is a norm, by the way, the infiltration study is a normal occurrence in almost every community on an annual basis, that analysis. We had the county provide information with us, and basically their answer was, well, you are a lake community, okay, which is basically we're just, just suck it up, buttercup. All right. I know better. We've spent a lot of money into our sewers, and I believe the major portion of it has been to fix infiltration, and Wes is very well aware of that. So, yes, we need to do this, but we need to decide how we're going to achieve these things. I mean, it's easy for, let's tell Darwin, and Darwin tell Wes, and Wes never says anything about I can't do it. But we may need to seek, these are the kind of things that cost money, studies. So we're talking getting our engineer involved probably, and so that would be a pay item, just to let you know, okay? That would be a pay item, and then an enforcement item, enforcement, so.
Yeah, so I have kind of written down investigate water usage and discharge, just doing potential another infiltration study, but under that, how, when, at what cost, how are we paying for it? That kind of,
Okay,
thing.
that's fine,
yeah.
it's my comment.
Any other comments on that? Okay, the next one, so that would be objective 1.4. The next one, update standardized village staff contracts, including performing legal reviews, standardizing the contracts, ensuring contracts are competitive, making the contracts finite in duration. Mr. Dandelides.
Yeah, so this is one, I've considered this a couple of different times from a couple of different angles. I have reviewed all of the contracts with our staff, and there are clear differences in those contracts, contract to contract. Some of them call out vacation, some of them call out personal time. Some have bereavement, some don't. Some have comp time, some don't. So those are a couple of things that I noticed. One of the things that hit me, I guess twice. First of all, I guess the first time it hit me was when we were talking about going out and looking for, it started off with the legal, but we decided that it would be prudent for us to look at our contracts with our consultants on a regular basis, just to make sure that they're competitive and up to date and whatnot. We should be doing the same thing with our staff. The other thing that came to light was discussion in one of our meetings around, actually it was our DDA executive director, and that contract was finite. It was a 3-year contract, so that automatically came up for discussion every 3 years. Ours are infinite. Once it's signed, it goes on until whenever. And I don't think that that's realistic. So I think that, and where I would start is I'd start with, our new attorney, and I'd say, go through these contracts and tell us where we need to shore things up. So I just think it'd be prudent for us to take a look at that and get more standardized.
I think a couple thoughts I had on that. Current contracts, we can't update those unless they want to renegotiate their contracts.
Well, I don't know about that.
Because I've heard,
Either of us could open up the contract.
I think you've
Let's-
got to be really careful.
Let's step away from an argument now
Yeah.
about that.
Right, with that. So I'm just thinking from a goals and objectives standpoint, I don't know. I don't mind like standardized contracts for new employees or like making sure, I want to be careful, like, we are not the ones writing contracts. We have to approve them, but we're not the ones writing them and negotiating, in a room for a contract for someone who's working in our office or an officer who's being hired. And there's unions involved with some of these employees. And so I just want to be a little bit careful about not trying to overstep where I don't have the authority or expertise in that. So yeah, that's what I'm wrestling with, trying to be careful not to insert us as a body into some things that maybe we should kind of.
So one
Not totally
point,
in.
I have only one point on this, and I agree with you, Teresa, because I've long been yelling, the difference between the administrative branch and the politicians needed to be clear in the village. The good place we could start with this is with our contracts with our consultants, okay? I think we have a mutual severability clause with our consultants, which says, we can notify them that it's time to go, and they've got to go. So the thing about a contract duration limit is what it does, it creates a negotiating point. When you have these governmental contracts with employees, it's hard as hell to get rid of somebody because you have to show, unless there's a mutual agreement to just separate ways, you have to actually beat somebody down or let them beat themselves down to a point where they become unqualified. I don't know the right words. You understand what I'm saying? And it's uncomfortable. So having a 5-year contract gives you a chance to get to a point where you can dismiss somebody with love on both sides of the field. And just say, well, it's been 5 years, we want to move in a different direction, as opposed to, well, this person's been here 5 years, how can we get rid of them? So that's the advantage I see to George's comments about having a defined term contract. That would be a policy that we could set if we wanted. We could do a policy that all village contracts will be, defined term. And, but yes, I don't know if our authority to go back and renegotiate the chief's contract or Darwin's contract, So within that framework, I'd be willing to look at our overall village policy towards employment, and I'm sure we could come to something that, could work to satisfy everybody, maybe. I don't know. I'm not really a big employment person.
Yeah.
Contracts are to protect parties from each other. So
So I guess I would say I'm not personally in favor of having this as a goal and objective as it's written anyway.
Yeah, I would, if you wanted to modify the wording to review the policy, we could have another, 1-month committee and sit down with Darwin and review the policy and, and see if it's something that, if some council people want to put time onto it, I'll support that. So why don't we mush it down a little bit to more investigatory?
And I'm assuming that all the staff gets regular evaluations, which that would be, that's typical when you have any kind of contract, is you get a regular evaluation. When I was in the schools, I had my evaluation, every year. And I would think that the evaluation is a person doing the job that they were, hired for. So I'm not liking the wording of this, performing legal reviews. I don't like that, because I think it's up to the village manager to do, when doing the annual, I'm assuming annual review of the staff member, goes through and makes sure that that person is doing what they're supposed to be doing. And if not, then that would be reason to let that person go. But I'm not liking the wording of this.
And remember too that this council does not hire administrative staff. That is the
Right.
village manager's role. that he hires them. And in any business too, you have people with different contracts. People negotiate their contracts, so you will have difference in contracts. So even as much as you want to standardize them, they may have different. So, we hire the village manager, we approve, he recommends to us like the police chief and the DPW director, but then as far as administrative staff, he does that hiring. That is not our job to do that. So as Mr. Lamb said, we could set policy direction if we could direct him to say, we want everybody to be, term employees or something like that. I don't see this as something I want personally to keep on, but.
Yeah. The part I liked about it, I think maybe it's in there, is and what I liked about the legal review was that there was a policy or a process, maybe something in place to say, we're going to look at these contracts every 5 years, every 3, whatever it is, just to, again, make sure we're getting the best representation and services, rates, all that. I like having that periodic review. I don't know if that means finite in duration, or if maybe it's not as much administrative as the contract support, but I do like that component as a best practice to take a peek every 4 years or 5 years. Yeah.
And I think what you're talking about are like our attorney, our planners, our engineers, and that absolutely, we've already talked about that and have a process now for that.
Yep.
I think this is more specifically towards
Admin.
employees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just a couple of things. First of all, I'm not going to fall on my sword on this one, okay? This was not intended to be discussion of performance reviews. This is intended to be around the actual contracts relative to who's got responsibility for what. I don't want to get into running the administration day to day, but I feel that we, as a council, have an obligation to set the policy and so forth for administration. And that's where I was going with this. I'm not going to fall on my sword. If we don't want to, if we don't think this is worth the time, I'm fine with that. Won't mean I don't still think it's an issue, but, like I said, I'm not going to fall on my sword.
I'm okay with scratching it
Yeah.
if it sounds very complex. We have a lot of other pressing issues at the time. I'd support
Yeah.
scratching it, so.
All right, the next one, reduce and minimize taxpayer burden for CIP funding by maximize outside or other funding. Mr. Papchak.
Yeah, and I know we're probably getting pressed for time, so I can speed up through these. I think maybe the ones after that are maybe more values or how we operate and do certain things. But if I were to pick just one goal for the year, it would be this: reduce and minimize the taxpayer burden. That's the biggest issue that I've heard the last several months, right? Water bills, sewer bills. What can we do to address that? And to address how much is getting passed on to the taxpayers versus where else can we get the funding? It goes into, people are getting blindsided with bills, rate increases. Guess what? There's going to be more. You're going to pay for your streets and roads too. More bills coming. Number one goal, what can we do to minimize that? I think I can put everything else secondary on the list.
Yeah, I think as I was reading the ones, it was, okay, so what specifically is this? I felt like there were vision pieces
Yeah.
and, how to hone it into goal
Right.
pieces.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
very, very succinct
Yeah.
and should be an item.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the comment that I would make is if we look at this one and then we drop down to the last one under this one where conduct a review of village water rates and billing practices from Alex, and then under the next goal, the two that I've got there, I think these are all very, very similar. Because I agree with what you're saying. We've got to get our arms around where this CIP is impacting our residents. We're in trouble. But anyway, I think that we should look at combining some of these so that we've got kind of an overall, what are we going to do about CIP funding?
I'm wondering if just creating, we have the goals, promote sound improvement financial management, and we could wordsmith that, but I don't think it's worth our time, but what if we do, at this point, like goal, capital improvement plan, management, or however, create a kind of a new goal
Yeah,
section?
yeah.
Yeah, management of the capital
Yeah.
improvement plan, period. That covers everything, right? Doesn't it?
As a separate goal.
Yeah, as a
Yeah.
separate goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, under that would be this one is like, objective, if this is goal 2, it'd be objective 2.1, and then review of water rates and billing practices, 2.2, similar, but, there's specific items. And then an analysis of the CIP to determine appropriate use of the 75-25 infrastructure funding as 2.3. Does that make sense?
And the next one too.
The next one's
investigate
important,
alternate
too.
Yeah.
funding strategies.
So,
next
yeah,
one is
2.4, investigate alternative funding strategies. Look at us moving through all those so fast.
We've talked about all this so much that we should all be pros at this now.
I'm just capturing them so I know. Under the promote management of capital assets and infrastructure, so from what I heard from you, Mr. Papchak, we can kind of move through the other ones under the first section.
Yeah.
But then as we look at promote proper management of capital assets and infrastructure, you have fixed the small things faster. And I think my question was, what qualifies as small things? Is there a monetary threshold? How are
Yeah.
we identifying these?
I don't know. Yeah, I put sidewalks in there. That felt like one of them. You hear it a lot. I don't know if it's the smaller parks and rec types of things, the gazebos, all these things, a lot of the sprinklers, things get talked about a lot. But I just sense that the residents would like things to move a little faster. The big things, the CIP and those things take time, but the other, yeah, I guess, I don't know. Yeah, nothing else specific there other than those, it would be nice to get a few more small wins, right?
Yeah, the
We got
low-hanging
the
fruit
steeple,
wins, yeah.
right, some of those things, yeah.
So the key to fixing things is making sure during the budget process that Darwin has allocated a $30,000 for miscellaneous village repair. So
Yeah.
I've noticed with the village manager, he plans for things that he sees. And so that's why he keeps asking us. So I think that's a, budgetary
Okay.
thing, not really an objective. I think that's like, kind of like, yeah, it's kind of like in the parks and the budget things and our swing sets. And I don't know. Or is it a discretionary fund you're asking for?
No, it's more the small thing, yeah. Yeah.
So he's always says he's got money, right? The last year we've heard almost every instance Darwin says, yeah, I've got some money set aside for the small things. So, maybe we'll get lucky this year.
I'm just curious, from a mechanism standpoint, maybe you could tell me, Wes, I know, like, when people see a need, they can always call, email Darwin, call the village. Is there, like, a form online if people see something like, oh, I see something that's askew or off, is it they have to call, or could they, fill it out and it goes to?
We get them all the time from the website. There's
Okay,
a
there's a
link on the
form.
website where they can email us directly
Okay.
by department or village manager.
So I'm wondering if maybe that, because some of it might be an awareness piece.
Yeah.
If maybe we could even put that in the next newsletter, like, hey, see something that needs fixed in the village, here's where you go. So some of that, I think, is a communication piece
I
as
think so,
well.
yeah. You see a sign that's down or a handrail that's
Yeah.
askew, yeah, I've heard those things come up. They get done, they get fixed, and maybe there's not as much awareness of it.
Yeah. So, I think that could be a good thing to put in the next newsletter, just so people are aware of, like,
Yep.
see something, let us know, so we can take care of it. Our DPW is great, but you can't see everything when they're mowing lawns in cemeteries for hours on end.
Weed whacking.
So goal, so this would be then, I think we've taken off that promote proper management of capital asset infrastructure, and we've renamed it as the management of CIP. So then goal 3 would be promote a positive community image. And we'll take maybe one or two on here, and then we'll give a 3-minute recess. So maybe we'll just do the first one. Promote positive collaborative working relationships with both DDA and township, focusing on common objectives, leadership capabilities, and adequate funding.
So this one doesn't meet any of the SMART framework, unfortunately, but I believe that we've got some, I think we've got some work to do from a relationship standpoint, a working relationship standpoint between the village and the DDA, and similarly between the village and the township. And there's got to be some way that we can be the better person and do something, come up with some way to improve that those working relationships. And
Yeah.
I've witnessed it not only as I've been here on council for the last year, but previous to that in the couple of years that I attended a lot of these meetings. And I think it's something that we need to work on.
Yeah. So I think I want to pause here. I know they're members of public. We only have, about three minutes before our regular meeting is supposed to start. So if members of the public have input on what we've already talked about, I would love to hear that during the public comment time of our regular agenda. I think that would be a great space, because I do want to give people a moment to reset and get an agenda for the next. We do have another goal workshop set up as well, so we do have a few more things under promote positive community image. We also have 2 more goal sections: promote quality recreation services, environmental stewardship, and promote efficient and effective municipal operations that we'll be talking about. I also want to mention too, if people are watching this online or if they read the minutes later, please feel free to give feedback, especially about what we have talked about already on the different goals, and we'll keep going on them. Yes, Mr. Lim.
We got about 15 minutes left on this thing, and George had asked, I think if we don't finish it now, I think we should carry it over into the next meeting and get this done. We're doing so well with it, and everybody's being so cooperative, and that you might want to, when we come to the next meeting, I will support, I'll support you, George, to make that ask.
So it can be added as an agenda item.
Okay.
And that's what I had planned to do based on the very
15.
limited
Yeah.
agenda that we have coming up at the next meeting.
So, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this.
Excuse me?
Yes.
Earlier, you guys didn't do a motion to excuse council member.
Oh, yeah, you are right.
Can I move to excuse Councilmember?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Lindsay. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Move to adjourn.
Support? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We will reconvene in 2 minutes for the regular meeting.